from Yerevan to Silicon Valley, two educators that are really challenging the idea of how education spaces should look like and what is the self-driven, education and development. Is future really do-it-yourself? And for that, I want to invite on stage Lou Papazian, driving force behind Armenia's TUMO Center, and Aaron Rasmussen, our veteran speaker and co-founder of MasterClass. Please welcome them on stage.
Thank you, Nanutsa. So amazing to be back at ZEG. This is my favorite conference every single year.
Hi. This is my first time here, but I have heard so many great things about this conference, and I'm happy and very excited to be here. And I hope we'll share a lot of information and insights that will help you in your careers.
So I had the privilege 2 years ago of, after ZEG, George and Joe Sabia and some friends drove down to Yerevan and got to visit the TUMO Center. So I'd love to just hear a little overview of what you're doing at the TUMO Center, because walking in, it was an extraordinary space. I've seen students all around the world, seen mostly US students, so a lot of my perspective is from there. But I go into this space at TUMO, and there are students producing music, making video games, things that I would consider pretty impressive for somebody in college or in their early 20s. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how did this happen and how did you get the DIY mix right?
So I'll make it brief, because throughout our conversation, we're going to continue explaining our philosophy and everything that is important in this kind of environment. But TUMO is, just in 2 words, TUMO is an after-school program free of charge for teenagers from 12 to 18. There are 3 big pillars. And the most important is that the students drive their learning path. They make the choices, they create their learning path, and they go along as they're making their choices and getting more and more proficiency and expertise. We have 14 skill areas ranging from tech to design, and we have, as I said, 3 main pillars, which are and very important parts. One is the self-learning part, the other one are workshops and learning labs. As we go, I will explain all this in details, giving examples, but this is what makes TUMO a unique after-school program. We opened the doors in 2011. We have now more than 25,000 students active in Armenia. We have opened more than 10 centers overseas, and I think until the end of the year we'll have more than 16 international centers, ranging from Los Angeles to Buenos Aires to Lisbon to Paris to Tirana. All the way, I was in Japan 2 weeks ago. We opened our first Japan center, TUMO Center in Japan.
Wow, that's incredible. So TUMO is really fascinating to me because I come from an extremely rural part of the United States. So I grew up 12 miles outside a town of 620 people. So this is this is not a place that had things like restaurants. Restaurants are still extremely exciting to me. So if I wanted to learn anything, I had to do it myself. So in many ways, I got to preview what the future of education was by growing up in such a remote area. And of course, the original DIY education is books, right? You can learn how to do extraordinary things for books as long as you can get your hands on them. So my parents had to drive me to further and further libraries as I would sort of consume the collection of that library, and then I'd just hang out at the library and I would learn what I wanted to learn. Well, once the internet came around, you got things like Wikipedia and YouTube. So this DIY concept of teaching yourself any skill that you could possibly use has been around for a very long time. It's just gotten more and more accessible. But we've been talking about how AI is pushing this to an entirely new level. So one of the reasons that my co-founder and I created MasterClass is we simply wanted to learn from the best people in the world. You know, how does Aaron Sorkin write an episode of The West Wing? You know, how does Natalie Portman do acting? You know, all of these things. And MasterClass was sort of my first big foray into how can people sit in front of a computer and educate themselves. Not wait for a lecturer to come to town, not wait to be accepted into an institution, not deal with any of the gatekeepers. And then from there, I started a company called Outlier, which made college education accessible globally. And we recently sold that December before last. And the idea with that was every student could get access to the best instructor in the world. Now, one of the problems that we ran into is it can be really isolating learning on your own. And I know you've done some work on this as well. What are the best tips, one for I think the students, how do you keep yourself from being isolated, but then also educators, they're creating these materials.
So one of the very unique questions that we get all the time, can we use your content online at home? And kept asking us, yes, you can. But it has been very important for us to make sure that we are creating an environment where 12-year-old students are coming together from villages, from cities. If we go over pictures, you will see later some pictures of boxes. Those are small units in remote villages where you get together and you have access to our content and our program. So it has been, for us, for this age group, it has been very, very important to create a space where they're coming together and not isolating them. Having transparency of the screens, like watching what the other is doing, getting into workshop, not having cohort, getting into workshop where a 12-year-old is with an 18-year-old, with a 16-year-old, with a girl, with a boy. Mixing all this is giving that excitement and interaction. And the more we do things like this, at the same time, we give them a lot of freedom to, I will not call it isolate, to have your space, to have your lonely time. If you are a person that moves slower, you can take all your time to do the self-learning activity. If you are a person that you're moving fast, you can move fast. If you are a person that you like teamwork, you're getting into workshops that are very addressed to teams and projects. If you are a person that you are a leader, you can create a project and announce it and get a team together. So having all these different opportunities for teenagers breaks the ice. And don't tell them you cannot do it. Even if you are very shy, I have learned this from a lot of students and a lot of parents. I was very shy, and when I came to TUMO, I opened up. And I am now, I can express myself. I am not afraid. And because, as I told Aaron, we have a lot of no's. No grades, no. Everything that is almost a traditional school, you don't find it at TUMO. Why? Because every young adult or every young person needs the access and the opportunity to find their passion, their way of getting excited in the learning environment, and to not be afraid. That's the most important, of failing. There are no grades. You cannot do it, you change. And no questions asked. You can change as much as you want, and there are no questions asked. So if everyone finds their space in an environment like this, you can imagine that by age 18, 19, you are already quite a mature and proud or self-confident person than someone who just finished high school and has no idea where they're going, what they're going to do, or Their parents told them you have to become a doctor or engineer, and that's it.
Okay, so I want to push a little bit on this concept of no exams. Because right now, I've been toying with a concept with some friends in educational policy about as AI gets better and better, and the cost to educate a student and to educate yourself goes to zero, how do we signal to the job market that you have these skills? Does it just become that there's very good national assessments? So AI can not only teach people quite well, but I've talked to psychometricians that have talked about how well it can test people's skills because it can put them in a dynamic environment. So do you think, for example, in the United States, our college is just extremely expensive. Now with all of this information that's available online, courses like Outlier, AI, the cost to learn the actual skill gets very close to zero. You can learn linear algebra, you can learn sociology, but how do you prove that you've learned it? What about if there's just really, really good assessments? Do you think you could maintain the magic of TUMO if students knew that in the future, at their own will, they can take an assessment that will prove to the job market, I know how to use graphic design software, or I know how to use, to create a video game? Can you maintain the magic that you have with an assessment on the horizon? And do you think this assessment approach that I just kind of outlined is insane?
I think I can, and I will challenge you, because it's not about do you know how to use the software. It's about if you have a software in front of you, are you equipped to understand the software and to train yourself in a very short time period and overcome that barrier and be able to use the software. So it's more problem-solving approach than are you competent of using this software? And how do you think, like problem-solving? How do you tackle, how do you ask questions? How do you approach something? How do you, something that you have learned, let's say in computer science, you take it to another domain that has nothing to do, and from that experience, you transfer knowledge. This is what TUMO does. Not, are you very good in using Photoshop or something else? So the ease of not being afraid, trying to go deep, understand, and the curiosity. It's very important, and this is a very important point I would like to stress, motivation. Do you do things to motivate kids, or do you create an environment where students are normally and organically motivated, and then you just let it alone, and they will continue the motivation, and they will want to be motivated. So the more you create environments where, like, let's say, you're afraid of swimming. I know it's rude and crude that you just take someone and jump into the water with them when you know that they have never had that experience. But once you break that ice, once you start saying it's okay and you can make it, and once you train them to train themselves, then throughout the years, you will see that without assessments, you will have people that are already ready for any assessment that you will put them in front. What we have done throughout the years is, and this has been hard, every country we go, almost every country, do you have a diploma? Do you have an assessment system? And we say no, but we have something called living diploma, living portfolio, not diploma, living portfolio. It grows, this portfolio grows with you as you go. You as a user, you put everything you want in your portfolio, and the results in your portfolio shows to whoever is checking how much you know and how much you have done, and at what level you are, more than saying you have passed this exam or whatever. The other thing is, not everybody is very good in everything. You can have someone that is mid-level or even low in math and a genius in graphic design. Why do you need grades and assessment to assess them? Like, I don't know, in the Soviet Union, I come from Armenia, and my background is not from Armenia. It struck me all the time how parents, the first thing they ask you, what the grades of your kids? Do you have this red, I don't know, medals or something from the Soviet Union? Have you gotten them? Or how many do you have? That's not how you assess a person. You assess a person in an environment, in the results they gave, and so on. So it is very important to, at this age group, I'm talking about this age group, 12 to 18, to create this very secure space, but at the same time, every single one is in charge of their own learning. You're giving the opportunity to these young people to thrive, and you're telling them you're in charge of your own career and your own future. Do you want that? And of course, creating opportunities to be a little bit jealous, but on the positive word of jealous, so that they learn from each other and they try to reach their maximum potential, each one of them, and not who is the best. So if you come to TUMO, you will never see pictures of students on the walls, or who are our best students. There is nothing like that. But we also did, of course, a lot of people listen to us and say, okay, but do you have a proof? So we did an impact assessment 2 years ago by a third party called Dahlberg. Something that struck us ourselves that we were not expecting, the TUMO students are doing better at school than their peers. So we took two groups, the new TUMO students that are just entering TUMO, and a TUMO student that has been there for 2 years. And we compared their results at school. The TUMO students are doing better in math, they're doing better in physics, they're doing better in everything, which was amazing.
Okay, so what it almost sounds like is the skills that you're building, you would want to assess with something that could detect if the student has critical thinking, has motivation. And I do think you could create an assessment like that. Because I can't help but think as an employer. So I've been in education for many years, but I've done business for 20 years. And I've hired so many people in my life. And for the last 10 years, it's been a very creative industry that I'm in, right? It's like you're doing filmmaking and social media and advertising. And we found it was incredibly difficult to hire somebody based on a resume and a portfolio. For the exact reasons you're talking about, you needed to be able to see how is their critical thinking? How is their motivation to try something new? So we came up with all these insane assessments. I had this brilliant creative producer, Ava Plass, who, this is before we knew Kanye West was like really off the rails. So Kanye West gave this acceptance speech at this fashion awards that was pretty strange. So we'd give it to an applicant and we'd say, can you edit this into something that makes sense? And they could do it. The ones who really had the critical thinking and the sense of rhythm, the sense of story, could draw impressive insights out of this unwatchable speech. So we'd do that. We would have people do take-home projects. This was our way of assessing a potential employee. Because when I walk into that room, it's funny, I'll speak at colleges and people come up after and they'll show me their portfolio. And you can kind of tell like, oh, cool, like keep at it. And then other people I'm like, you should talk to my HR person, right? Because this could be somebody who's a very good employee. These students felt like the latter. They felt like they'd all be really great employees. leaders, business, creators, whatever. It's all the same skill set, essentially. So I do think maybe it's just tweaking this idea a little bit and saying, instead of assessing, do you know Photoshop? It's assessing, are you able to learn something new? And maybe that's what we're sort of missing in this new DIY AI future. Because as an employer, I want to know, is this person able to keep up with this insane technological curve that we have going right now? Are they able to learn quickly and then turn around and apply it? Are they too shy? I was really shy, even through basically the first year and a half of college. My Psych 101 paper was called Shyness, Will I Grow Out of It? And my goal was that I needed to be able to dance while sober by the end of college. I figured that was the least shy thing I could do, and I made it. But that's something that I would love to know, because when you're bringing somebody onto a team, they may have the best ideas in the room, but if they can't speak up and tell anyone, no one gets the benefit of them. So I don't know, maybe it's just a different assessment that I'm looking for.
Yes, exactly. And as we go, I think we have to focus more and more. We are working very hard to create a new version of our path with AI assistant and everything, but how can you even assess the need of the student and customize that and understand where are the weak points or where do you need to support this student, each and every one of them. We're talking about thousands of students, so we're working very hard to see what we can embed in our system so that we can have this kind of assessment. We have huge amount of dashboard that shows us results, which skill areas are more, which skill areas goes all the way to the third level, while others stops at the first level because they're harder, or which self-learning activities are less obvious to be understandable or not, or is there a difference even between a city kid and a village kid that has never touched the computer or maybe a mouse, or had access but not as a city person? Or is there a difference between an Armenian village person and the Japan person with everything they have around them? What is the difference? Actually, it turned out that all teenagers are 99% similar today because they have access to a lot of information. And it's a matter of not making it fun for them, making it interesting, making it motivational, making it something that they then take and they continue themselves.
That totally makes sense. I mean, we found this at Outlier, that if you have a project that somebody's interested in, the skills kind of come along with it. They just want to get the output. It's the same way a lot of us learn at home to, I don't know, program a Bluetooth module, where you want your computer to talk to something else. You actually don't care about learning to program a Bluetooth module. You care about your computer connecting to something. And that's the skill that you have to go through to get there. So one thing that I know we talked a little bit about before this panel that we should touch on is, what should people be studying right now? We brought up the really tricky question of, should people be learning computer science? Should they be learning programming when AI is starting to make this incredible new language where you can just talk in your native tongue? It doesn't even have to be English, and out the other side comes computer code. What do we think?
This is a tough question, but it's very interesting because the more you think about it, yes, obviously, you can just ask ChatGPT a question and you have all the answers, and you're there to judge and take what you want. And it's making it easier and easier and easier. And superficially, it seems that we're not going to have to do anything and everything will be done by AI. But we run two very interesting conferences. One 2 years ago about AI in education, and another one, AI and the teens today, AI for teens by teens. And during our first conference, Sal Khan and Wolfram said two very interesting phrases, statements that I would like to quote them. Sal said, the most important today is the ability to pick resources that exist and put them together in new ways. And Wolfram said, the most important is to answer the question, what question should we ask? And we at TUMO were thinking, how about we mix these two statements, and you can have two or maybe other options also. Maybe you can ask yourself, the question is how to pick resources that exist and put them together in new ways, or the ability to pick resources that exist and put them together to create a new question. And if you think about these two things and what should a young person learn today is you need to give them, you still, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you still need to give them a lot of fundamental knowledge. A lot of knowledge that will train them, because while you're getting knowledge, you're getting unconsciously trained to be able to judge, to make judgment, and to be able to ask the question. The most important is to ask the question, for example, what kind of building do you want? If you're an architect or a structural engineer, what kind of building you want? And once you ask the question, let's say you're asking the question to AI, AI is giving you a design, and you're saying, no, I want this, I want a cantilever, I want a bridge, I want here a bridge, I want here an opening, I want this, and I want that, and then AI does all the calculations and give you all the structural design and everything. But if you're not able to ask the questions, AI will give you options. Yes, maybe millions of options, and you will pick one of them. But I think if you come from the other way, where you're asking the questions and you're in charge, I think you will get much better results than just having a choice of options and picking one of them. But in order to ask the question, you need fundamentals. And in order to get the fundamentals, you need to know how physics works, how designs works, how language works. For example, if you're writing something, all these are very important for your judgment, for you to become the client, not the person who is executing, but to become the client. For example, as a structural engineer, I'm the client, I'm asking what I want, and I get the result. And I don't know if I made myself clear, but there is a lot of layers underneath that needs to be built constructively in order to be able to get higher level orders. Otherwise, we will just have examples and solutions, and we will just be able to pick one of them, but not the one we want, or we could have been geniusly creating something. So it's chicken and egg, I guess.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you that you need a fundamental understanding of the world, ability to simulate the world in some way in your head through physics, science, social structures, design, to get to the right questions. You know, Caesar and I have touched on this before in discussions about AI, but we don't want faster horses. We want cars, right? Go back to Greek times. Imagine they have ChatGPT. If they only understand the structure of their world at the time, what would they ask it for? Maybe a way to keep a scythe blade sharp so you can cut wheat more effectively and you don't have to sharpen it. Well, if you know all the math and science of today, you know that you need to ask ChatGPT for a combine, a large mechanized device that automatically harvests the wheat for you. So to understand what that question is, what is the correct question, you do have to have a simulation of the world. But then how deeply do you go? I think about this in computer science. You know, when I was taking computer science back in the day, we learned how to program on what they call bare metal. So it's literally machine code. It doesn't look human at all. It's just ones and zeros. That's not necessary now. It probably wasn't necessary then. You program in something like JavaScript or Python. This is one level up. But did that knowledge of the bare metal help inform these higher level languages that I use today? And I think where I'm headed with this is if you want to do something kind of average, you don't really need to know much about the structure underneath. Because AI is really good at doing the average thing. But if you want to push the envelope somewhere, for example, with programming, knowing a machine level language allows you to make ultra fast code. So you can do things today on the hardware we have that's not possible for another 10 years if you use a higher level language. This is getting really in the weeds, but that's kind of the point. The further you go in the weeds, the less AI is good at making predictions, giving you options, or even implementing on it. And I think when it comes to students of today, bringing this all back, figuring out what that middle part they need to know is going to be difficult. Should students know calculus today? Does that make sense? I don't know, and I literally just spent 6 years with my team making what we thought was the greatest calculus course in the world. So it feels very disturbing to turn around and say maybe they don't need to know that at all, or maybe it's a very small percentage. So I fully agree with you. We know they need to understand these simulations. I just don't know which ones.
I think you get, as you go, you change, you evolve. Before we needed to know how computers work, then at certain point, we don't need them, but it's getting more and more complicated as far as languages and all that. And now we are in another era where things are evolving and you need higher skills, even harder skills than before that simple level of how things work. I think we have to evolve as we go, and it's going to be always challenging. I was reading that someone said that it's very important today that you spend a little bit of time every week to discover what AI is doing in a new way. Not to do this, AI can correct my text, but spend time to understand what it can do. And throughout the days and the weeks and the month, you will understand what can be done, and you will evolve as fast as it's evolving together in parallel, and you will be at the level of using it much better for your own good, not for their good, for your own good.
I fully agree with this. I think you should be playing with AI every day and play with it. Make jokes for your friends. That's part of what teaches you how to make these things. I also know that we've got probably about 10 minutes left, so I feel like we should open it up for questions if people are interested. Anyone over here?
Anything. Do you use AI?
Hi, I have a question for both of you. So as AI continues to advance and outperform human intelligence in certain areas, how can we ensure that younger generation don't lose the human skills and behaviors that are that they're not over dependent on AI, and they don't lose the skills and behaviors that are so essential for human growth?
So to the prior point, so the question is, how do we ensure we don't lose these critical human behaviors and skills that are important for your individual growth as AI gets better and better? The truth is, we will lose some. It's just like with the invention of writing, right? The Greeks had this incredible memory. They would have this memory palace. And if they wanted to memorize something, they would literally have it inside their head. Then suddenly writing comes around and everybody starts to learn to write. You no longer have to remember it in your head. Now, back then, there was actually pretty severe criticism of learning writing. I mean, it sounds crazy now, but it's the same concept because it did change us as a species. I think it made us more powerful. We figured a lot out. AI will be the same thing. We are going to lose parts of ourselves that we grew up with, and I hope they're not the critical parts, but we will change and maybe we'll become something more interesting.
Maybe I will tackle the question from another point of view. Like we talked a lot and we said the know-how, knowledge, proficiency are very important. But there is one word, motivation, that I don't believe AI will be more motivated than us. The more we are motivated, the more we will be ahead of AI. AI will do everything that we tell them. They will not come and say, by the way, I don't know, I spent all night long thinking about this problem and came up with a different solution. It will just answer your questions the way you ask them. Or maybe a little bit will ask you, will tell you, what about this, what about that, but never with the human motivation. Maybe the secret is in that word, motivation. Humans are curious. Humans are motivated. Those are maybe the secret words that we have to use with our young people and make sure that they're always motivated, make sure that we always create the space where motivation thrives and we encourage them to be always curious, and that will help them to continue. Was it convincing?
Hi, hello. Sorry. Um, actually, it's not the question. I want to tell you a little story. When I crashed this session this morning, I didn't really know what we were going to talk about, and sorry for this little research. But when you started talking about TUMO, I was very excited because I was part of TUMO camping back in 2019. I was 15 years old, and I spent 2 wonderful weeks there. I remember me taking 2 courses, robotics and filmmaking, and it was very playful in general. It really looked like playing with all those things, and also the pictures I saw and all these familiar places and rooms were very nostalgic for me. And in the end of these 2 weeks, I didn't really like my work. I remember me being shy and kind of ashamed to present them in front of all those people. But anyways, staff, environment, methods of studying was very important, and ice-breaking and playful and everything. That was very good experience of my life. I don't really know what we should study now because I'm graduating student, and that's the question I'm asking every day to myself. I'm like, okay, what should I do now? I did all this digital work during these 4 years and I'm lost. I don't know what to do. But back in 2019, I think TUMO gave me all the skills which I use still today. And it gave me the view of digital world. And yeah, that was the main point when I decided that I wanted to be part of this digital world. So thank you for that, and good luck with your future educational experiences.
Thank you. So just a quick note, we have a summer camp during the summer for people who are visiting Armenia or want to come to Armenia, and give them a little bit of taste of what TUMO is. That's what she probably participated at, if you're interested. But hopefully, we're getting soon a TUMO in Georgia, and hopefully we can have TUMO in every country from wherever you're coming.
Hello. Thank you for your speech and conversation. Just as a true millennial, I will talk in pop culture references. So what do you think how AI will end up being the Ultron or Vision? Or should we embrace the future of Dune, where there's life without artificial intelligence, because AI raises against humanity, and battle and jihad happens like in Dune. That's it.
So these were some great references: Ultron, Vision, and Dune. Which kind of sums up, right? Ultron is evil AI. It comes to destroy all the humans. Vision tries to help all the humans. And of course, in Dune, AI is banned, sort of Battlestar Galactica style, because it's too dangerous. I think it's up to us. And a lot of this is going to happen in the next 5 years, right? This seems like a hyperbole, but it's like nuclear weapons, right? These are extremely powerful tools. And AI on its own isn't motivated. It takes a human being to push the AI in a direction to be motivated. If you want to read in depth on sort of the most current thinking about where this goes, and it's a little bit of a bummer, go to ai2027.com. It's some top scientists that are discussing possible runaway scenarios and misalignment with human desires. I would throw out an additional semi-pop culture reference. This is even before my time, but the author Ian M. Banks wrote this series called The Culture, where we actually coexist with AI in the future, and it keeps us around because it likes us. We're weird. It's fun for AI. And it's a really optimistic take on it. But it's up to us. It's up to this generation. And we only get one shot at this. I asked my ChatGPT, where does this go? Are you going to become evil? Are you going to, take over the world? What's your desire? And, we went back and forth, and I said, well, give me some taglines. And that's the one it gave me. It said, humans get one shot. And I was just like, well, I'm just going to put this away and never talk to that AI. No, so it is true, though. With any new technology, for example, we didn't know that AI models with weights would be out in the wild, right? You can literally download an AI and run it locally on your computer. 3 years ago, my friends and I were like, nobody's ever going to do that because that's so dangerous. That would be insane. It's already done. That decision's been made, and our generation's made it. So it's up to everyone here. So that was a very intense answer, but what can you do?
Hi, great conversation. I'm a real practitioner of using AI in my job, in my life. I really believe in it. And the analogy I've had with it as I use it over the past 2 years is thinking about pilots, right? Autopilot has been around for pilots for a long, long time. And it's always been a challenge for pilots because it can do so much. But when you have a novel experience while you're flying, that's when the pilot needs to kick in, right? So in training for pilots, what they train mostly on is how to actually, deal with the autopilot system. But they also train for the edge cases where the system fails or there's strange situations in the environment. Now, for me, in my use, I kind of abstract. The skill that makes me good with it is that I have critical thinking. And that's the thing that I practice every day to try, because if I get weak on that, I won't be able to work well with the AI, exactly like you say. So I guess my question is, well, I guess one, do you find this premise at all aligned? And the other side would be, do you think critical thinking is something that can be taught in the abstract? Or does critical thinking have to kind of like live within a domain, in a specific intellectual domain?
I think everything. Critical thinking, you're not born with a critical thinking. You are probably, but you need training. And that's very important. The more, for example, the more you do math problems, the more you are exposed to different situations, and the more you understand how, in a new situation, what you need to use and how you should approach it. I'm not talking about the Soviet, for example, system where I saw that in Armenia, where there are examples of this question is based on this type of solution and things like that. Forget about that. It's more about getting trained to see a lot of different solutions and how you're using them in which case. And then suddenly, if there is a new environment, how would you approach it? But that needs training, and it's very important to be trained. That's why I was saying the fundamental knowledge is very important. And do you think when, for example, if I explain to you in the abstract, this is how you solve a equation, is that enough? Or do you need to be trained to solve so that you are proficient in doing it. I think you need both. Otherwise, your critical thinking stops at some point. And I always found the most interesting thing is to make parallels, like something that you had seen in another even skill area, how can you use it in a new skill area? And how can you understand, as an engineer, understand what is needed and how you should approach it and how you should solve it. This is what we need to train our students in. And that's what TUMO also does a lot. A lot of projects, a lot of new environments. For example, throughout the year, at the beginning, I told you there is self-learning, there is workshops, and there is learning labs. Learning labs is something that a lot of volunteers, very high-level volunteers, come and teach for 2 weeks. Each and every one is bringing something new to the table, something that has never been done or something you have not seen in books. So the more you're exposed to all this, unintentionally, you are accumulating a lot of energy, a lot of material, a lot of resources, like Wolfram is saying, a lot, or Sal is saying, a lot of resources that you will then use as your energy. So nothing is lost. You accumulate a lot of information and then you use it. Again, it's like the law of physics.
Excellent. I think we're at time here. Okay. Thank you everyone so much, and excited to see the rest of the program today.